And we are back on the Gospel Giant 94.7 FM with Miss Gwen Turner, talking about domestic violence. And when we left, we were going to talk a little bit about some challenges that come with domestic violence, whether it's with the victim being older or same sex or the intimate relationships or immigrants and the laws in terms of them being able to have the law on their side because maybe they're illegal.
Right,
Right.
right. And that is a concern as it relates to immigrants. The language barrier
Yes.
has always been an issue. I think that they're trying more and more and more and more to get more bilingual, more diverse officers, not only on police forces, but even in the courtroom, even, just all the way across the board. A lot of times that has been a challenge because they will be afraid to come. You don't understand what I'm saying. And
Yes.
then, you may send me back because I don't have all my paperwork. As it relates to same-sex relationships, it's hard sometimes because the police officer that may be coming to the scene, or the lawyer in the courtroom, or the court advocate for that matter, may view same-sex relationships as something wrong. So they would feel like, well, I'm not going to get justice because they already feel like what I'm doing is wrong. So now I think that times are changing more, and the law, the courts, everybody is becoming more open to right is just right and wrong is just wrong. If I hurt you, regardless to how old I am, where I'm from, or what sex, or anything, that wrong is just wrong. With men, so many times in the past, if a male officer showed up on a scene and something was going wrong, and say for instance the female was the aggressor, so then you have a police officer saying, oh, you can't handle your household, so there's that male thing going on there, when the situation may just very well be, my mama taught me not to hit a woman.
That's right.
So I'm not going to go back. So those were challenges that we are trying desperately to kill those barriers and get past that, because we have to eradicate the demon of domestic violence, period, regardless to who it is.
Yeah. How are the victims able to create a safety plan? And maybe even before you talk about that, what is usually the rock bottom for victims when it comes to domestic violence?
With every relationship, every victim, there's a different rock bottom. It just all depends on that relationship.
Children. Yeah.
And a lot of victims stay because of the children, which is the worst reason to stay.
Absolutely.
Because children internalize everything that you don't think they hear, everything that you don't think they see. Most of it they do hear it, and most of it they do see it, but they internalize the feelings that their parents are going through anyway. So even if they don't know exactly what's going on, they know something is going on because the household is tense. So that's going to make the child tense. And a lot of times we hear, well, I don't want to leave because, I don't want to, my child. And so many times the abuser has not done anything to the child, just to their partner or their spouse or whatever. And you have to keep in mind, victims of domestic violence, including myself, you don't want to end the relationship.
You don't, because I left for my children, and it's really eye-opening to talk to you right now because even after I did that, I had two small babies, and I am just to everybody else like a rock,
Absolutely.
and I'm everybody's go-to person and all that. So I just hold my head up and I stick my chest out and I put a smile on my face and I go out into the world and do whatever it was that I needed to do to function for that day. But I realized the control thing continued even after I left because, you know, he didn't help me with the children. He even said, you know, if I won't have you, I won't have anything to do with them.
Yeah.
And he meant it.
Yeah.
And it was a way of controlling me because if you got two small kids, how much can you do?
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of wherewithal within that person. Each victim has to get to the point. I'll never forget a older lady who knew me, who knew him, and she saw me on the elevator one day, and she said, "Gwen." Now I'm thinking nobody knows, and for the most part, nobody did know. She said, "Nobody will know when you've had your enough until you know you've had your enough. And when you've had your enough, you'll be gone, and we'll all understand."
Wow.
And I looked at her, you know, but when I had my enough, I was gone.
You had your enough.
And it was, there was no looking back.
Yeah.
So rock bottom could be, you know, a lot of different things for different people. And you were talking about safety plans, and that's such a very important thing, especially in the times that we live in now. There must be a safety plan in place. I work with clients to develop a safety plan while you're there.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's not conducive for you to leave that day. And a lot of times it's not conducive for me to say, "I'm going to leave you."
Right.
That may not be safe. That may not be healthy. If you have children, one of the things that I always tell people, you know you're going to leave, let's make a plan. The first thing you need to do is get every birth certificate, every social security card, every credential, everything for you and your children. And you make 3 copies of that. And you put it in an envelope. And you give it to somebody else. You bring it to me, you give it to somebody. Because starting all over again is not easy.
No.
And if you're going to have to put kids in another school, if you're going to have to do this, that, and the other, you need all of those things.
That's serious.
So let's start there. That's one of the first things. If there are no children involved, then let's make a copy of everything that you have. Because you don't know how you're going to have to leave, if you're going to have to get up in a rush, if you're going to have, but have all the copies of everything that you need and have them somewhere else. If there is any way that you can save $5 a week, $5 a week, give it to the neighbor next door, give it to whomever it is. Because the night that you leave, now you may not be able to come to my house because I don't want him shooting up my house.
Right.
But I can take you to a hotel where he can't find you. The one thing that a victim of domestic violence need more than they need anything time they leave is a good night's sleep. I did not know how sleep deprived I was until I actually left. So having somewhere to go, which may be a hotel room, which may be something like that. If you have children, we'll go back to the children. And there have been arguments in the home, and the children have heard these arguments. You need to get code words to your children. If you hear mama say, Blue Panther, Blue Ivy, it can be anything, then you need to go to your room and lock the door and take a cell phone in there with you. And you need to call the neighbor, or you need to have these conversations with your children. Or if you see daddy hit me, or if you see mommy hit me, immediately run out the door. Go next door and call the police. I mean, you need to think ahead. You know what the past arguments have been. You know what the past incidents have been. Learn from those incidents and draw from that. Okay, if this happens again, then this already needs to be in place. Start packing a secret bag. It can be a Kroger bag, a Walmart bag, any kind of bag. Underwear. One change of clothes. Take it to a neighbor's house. You don't necessarily have to tell them why. You know, you can start moving things little by little by little, where there won't be noticed. I think it's important. A lot of times we don't want our employers to know what's going on. And I get that. But there will be a point where you need to let your employer know what's going on, because when you leave and they don't know where you are, the first place they're going to come, they're going to be waiting at your job when you get there.
Yeah.
So that an AOA can be put in place, which is an authorization of agency.
Okay.
Let your employer know, and it doesn't take a lot of work. You just go to the police precinct. They post a picture of him at your job, and that person is not allowed on the premises.
Wow.
So, I mean, there are a lot of little things that you can do. And usually when we do safety plans, or when I do safety plans, I talk to them about what happened the last time. And let's go from there. Or what normally happens when there is about to be an argument or an explosion. So, and you try to cater the safety plan to the relationship. So that way you'll know the way out. When is the best time to move? I've worked with a lot of college students. Just recently helped a college student, move, and which was a very tricky situation because they were both students on campus. They took classes together. So we had to really sit down, get with her teachers, and figure out a safe way to get her moved by the end of the semester so that, she could go on, and she graduated in December. And, we worked it out, but we had to cater that safety plan to her.
I heard you mention, maybe if you had a code word with a child, that means go take the phone in the room and lock the door.
Right.
How do you guys teach women or men that are being abused to protect their avenues of communication? So that if they need to call somebody, or especially if they're being kept away from family and friends.
Yeah, that goes back to, that's the reason a lot of times I have to tell clients, I'm not trying to get so deep in your business, but I'm trying to see exactly where you are so we can cater everything that we do. So that that you will remain safe. So you kind of have to get to know the person and know the situation to decide how to keep that communication going. You may need to tell family members, look, if I just text the letter O,
okay,
call the police. If I text the letter M, get over here right now. Because sometimes you may not be able to text a whole word or a whole message.
Right.
But, keep that favorites open, and then hit that letter and hit send. And you got to have a support system. I was blessed to have a support system. So many people don't have a support system, but you try to create one, maybe with neighbors, other advocates, or something like that. But a lot of times this is something that you cannot do alone.
Yeah, and I mean, it has to be, you talked about being sleep deprived, but it's mentally draining as well. You're not thinking at your best, in the first place. So, and you don't have a support system on top of that. So,
it can be very devastating.
Yeah.
I'm a proponent for counseling. I was blessed that when I came out of the relationship, I was headed to a new job at a counseling center. So I know that my life was strategically planned.
Yes.
So not only did I get a new job, I got counseling. So, and I'm writing a book now that talks about life after domestic violence, because I had to remember who Gwen was. I didn't know. I forgot what made me laugh, because I was so into what made him happy. As long as he was happy, then we were happy. I had forgotten, but I would have been an abuser had I not got counseling.
Why do you say that?
Because I promised myself no one was ever going, and it, not just with whoever my partner or husband or whatever it was. It was going to be a co-worker, whatever.
Anyone.
Nobody was going to talk to me any kind of way.
Yes.
Nobody was going to manipulate me ever again. Nobody was going to just do any of those things that had been done to me.
Yeah.
And I could, not at first, but I could see, okay, I'm taking on these terrible traits that really are not me.
Yeah.
I could be at Medco and somebody say, step on my toe. I was ready.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little while ago about, we shouldn't criticize why people stay.
Right.
We're going to come back in a moment and we're going to talk about why do people stay. We're talking about domestic violence on 94.7 FM, The Gospel Giant.